My name is Jackie Ross. I'm 29 years old, and 6 months ago, my life cracked open in a way I never saw coming. At the time, I thought I had everything figured out. I worked as an operations analyst for a logistics company in the Midwest. Not exactly a conversation starter at parties, but it paid well, and I was good at it. I spent my days optimizing supply chains, tracing inefficiencies, solving problems most people never noticed until something broke. There was something deeply satisfying about turning chaos into order, about knowing that if I did my job right, everything ran smoother behind the scenes. 3 years earlier, when the housing market dipped, I bought my own townhouse. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, a decent-sized garage I slowly turned into a project space. I replaced the floors myself, painted every room, upgraded appliances one by one, paycheck by paycheck. No debt except the mortgage. Good credit. A retirement account I contributed to every pay period. A paid-off 2016 Honda Accord that I maintained myself because that's how I was raised. I wasn't flashy, I was stable, and I liked my life that way. I met Ethan almost 2 years earlier at a mutual friend's monthly game night. One of those casual, low-pressure things where people drank cheap beer, argued over trivia answers, and pretended not to care who won. We got paired together for a team-based trivia round and spent more time talking between questions than actually playing. He had this easy ways of talking, curious without being invasive, funny without trying too hard. He worked in software support, solving other people's problems all day, just in a different language than mine. We found out we both loved hiking, had similar taste in music, and, somehow, both believed pineapple on pizza was acceptable. That should have been my first sign this might actually work. We didn't rush anything. We texted for a week, went on a few low-key dates, official after about a month, comfortable after 3. By 6 months, half my closet was his. He stayed over most nights because my place had more space, better parking, and didn't sound like the walls were made of cardboard. The relationship wasn't performative. We weren't posting each other every 5 minutes. We cooked dinner together, argued over whose turn it was to do the dishes, fell asleep on the couch, watching shows neither of us fully paid attention to. He kept a toothbrush at my place by month 2, a drawer by month 4. It felt real. We met each other's families early. His parents liked me immediately. My mom adored him. My younger sister grilled him with protective sibling questions, but he handled it like a pro. We talked about the future, not in some dramatic, rushed way, but realistically. Kids someday, a house with a yard, a garage big enough for projects, trips we'd take eventually. For a long time, everything pointed forward. That's when Lena started showing up differently. Lena was Ethan's best friend from high school. They'd been inseparable for years, long before I came into the picture. She was always around. Group hangouts, birthdays, casual dinners. At first, I appreciated her. She seemed supportive, friendly, a little loud, a little dramatic, but nothing that set off alarms. For the first 6 months of my relationship with Ethan, she was fine. Then something shifted. It was subtle at first. More texts, longer calls, her name lighting up Ethan's phone during dinner, during movies, in the middle of conversations. I wasn't the jealous type. I never checked his phone, never demanded explanations. But when someone interrupts your shared moments often enough, you start to feel it. Lena started making comments, never outright insults, just carefully phrased suggestions. "Wow, you've really settled into adulthood fast," she'd say, laughing. "Don't you ever miss being spontaneous?" Not everyone wants to lock things down before they've really lived. She always laughed afterward, like it was a joke, like she was just being honest, like she was doing us a favor by saying something no one else would. Ethan brushed it off, said she was just being Lena, said she meant well, said she'd been having a rough time lately and needed support. And I believed him, because at the time I believed in us. But looking back now, I can see it clearly. That was the moment she stepped between us, quietly, patiently, with a smile. And I didn't even realize I was already losing ground. By late winter, Lena wasn't just around anymore. She was everywhere. At first, I tried to tell myself I was imagining it. Ethan's phone buzzed constantly, but I told myself it was just group chats or work stuff, except it was always her name lighting up the screen. During dinner, during movies, even in the middle of conversations where I was mid-sentence and he'd glance down, thumb already moving. If I asked, he'd shrug it off. "She's just venting. She's stressed about work." You know how Lena is. I didn't want to be that girlfriend, the insecure one, the one who made their partner feel guilty for having friends. Lena had been in his life for over a decade. I'd been there less than 2 years. I told myself I needed to respect that history. What I didn't realize was that she was actively rewriting it. She started inserting herself into our plans. We'd mentioned trying a new restaurant downtown, and suddenly Lena would happen to be nearby. Ethan would invite her along because she'd been having a rough week. A movie night turned into a group hangout. A quiet Sunday grocery run turned into her tagging along because she needed a few things too. It stopped feeling like coincidence. The comments got sharper too, still subtle, still wrapped in humor. She'd talk about her weekends like she was on some grand adventure. Road trips, spontaneous nights out, stories that grew more dramatic every time she told them. And then she'd glance at me and say things like, "Not everyone's built for routine. Some people are just meant for more." She never said my name when she said it, but I felt it anyway. Ethan started picking up her language without realizing it. He'd mention how predictable our weeks were, how sometimes he wondered if we were moving too fast, how turning 30 felt closer than he expected. At first, I thought it was normal. Quarter-life anxiety. Everyone has moments where they question their choices. I'd had them before I bought my townhouse. Wondered if I was locking myself into something too soon. The difference was I'd made peace with my choices. Lena hadn't. And she wasn't going to let Ethan make peace with his either. In March, I tried to address it gently. One night after work, I turned off the TV and asked if he was okay. Really okay. Asked if he was feeling trapped or unhappy or unsure about us. He smiled, kissed my forehead, and told me I was overthinking. "I love you," he said. "This is just a phase. I'm excited about our future. June will be here before we know it." June mattered because his lease was ending. We'd been talking seriously about moving in together. My place made the most sense. I owned it, had space, lower monthly costs. We'd even started planning, talking about furniture. Which spare room would become his office? He joked about repainting the living room something warmer than the beige I'd chosen years earlier. I told him to pick whatever color he wanted. That was how sure I was. Then came his birthday party. I'd planned it weeks in advance. Nothing huge. Close friends, a few family members, maybe 20 people total. I made a list, sent invites early, cleaned my entire house top to bottom, ordered his favorite cake from the bakery across town, cooked all day, even put together a playlist I knew he loved. I cared about details. When I loved someone, I showed it. Lena showed up almost an hour late. No apology, no explanation, just swept in like she owned the place. Her gift was a last-minute gift card, still in a crinkled paper bag with the price sticker on it. And then she never left his side. Every conversation he tried to have, she inserted herself. Every photo someone wanted with him, she jumped into the frame. She told story after story about their high school days, inside jokes no one else understood. It felt like the Lena and Ethan show, and everyone else was just background noise. At one point, I was in the kitchen refilling drinks when I heard them on the back patio through the open door. She was talking about a trip she wanted to take. Somewhere spontaneous, somewhere far. "You deserve someone who actually wants to live, Ethan," she said, "not just settle into routines and responsibilities." I froze. He laughed. Didn't disagree. Didn't defend us. Didn't say he was happy. Just laughed. That moment should have been enough. But I finished pouring drinks, brought out the cake, sang happy birthday, smiled for photos, played the role I didn't realize I was being written out of. His parents pulled me aside before they left. His mom hugged me and whispered that she hoped I'd be around for many more birthdays. His dad thanked me for everything I'd done. I wonder now if she saw it before I did. By May, Ethan was distant. Not dramatically, just enough to make me feel like I was talking to someone who was half elsewhere. He spent more time on his phone, dodged conversations about moving in, started making plans that didn't include me. Girls' nights turned into nights where Lena just happened to be there. When I asked about it, he got defensive, said I was being controlling, said I needed to trust him more. Trust wasn't the issue. The issue was that his best friend was systematically dismantling our relationship, and he was letting her. I just didn't know yet how close we were to the breaking point. By the time June rolled around, I was living in a constant state of quiet anxiety. Nothing was wrong in a way I could point to and prove, but nothing felt right either. Ethan still came over, still kissed me goodbye, still said I love you. But it felt rehearsed, like lines he knew he was supposed to deliver. The lease deadline loomed. I needed clarity. I couldn't keep living in limbo, wondering whether I was planning a future with someone who was already halfway out the door. So one night in early June, after dinner, I asked him, directly this time, "Are we moving in together or not?" He didn't answer right away. He sat on my couch, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like it might give him the right script. That silence told me everything before he even opened his mouth. "I've been thinking a lot," he finally said. That sentence never leads anywhere good. He talked for a long time, but the words all sounded familiar. Too familiar. He said he felt like he'd rushed into adulthood, that he wasn't sure he'd really lived enough yet, that maybe we wanted different things, that he loved me, but he wasn't in love with me anymore. Every phrase sounded like it had been workshopped. I asked him if this had anything to do with Lena. He said no, but his voice cracked when he said it. That was confirmation enough. I didn't beg, I didn't cry, I didn't try to convince him we were worth saving. I just asked one question. "Are you sure this is what you want?" He nodded. So I stood up, walked to the hallway closet, and pulled out a box. I'd packed his things earlier that week. Not because I wanted to break up, but because I'd seen this coming and refused to be blindsided. He looked stunned. I handed him the box and walked him to the door. He started crying then, said he hoped we could still be friends someday. "I don't do friends with exes," I said calmly. "You made your choice." I closed the door behind him, leaned against it, and took a breath. I wasn't devastated. I was relieved. The uncertainty was finally over. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lena. She didn't waste time pretending to be kind. "Hope there are no hard feelings," she wrote. "Ethan deserves someone who matches his energy. I'll take good care of him." Like he was a prize she'd won. I blocked her immediately. Blocked her on everything. Then I blocked Ethan too, not out of anger, but because I needed silence more than closure. The next few weeks were strange. I threw myself into routine, went to the gym more, took on extra projects at work, planned a solo camping trip I'd been putting off for years, reconnected with friends I hadn't seen as much while I was in a relationship. My friend Dave took me out to lunch once a week. He'd been warning me about Lena for months, said she gave off snake vibes. Hearing someone else say it out loud helped more than I expected. Then the social media posts started. Ethan and Lena everywhere. Hiking trips, brewery tours, concerts, coffee shops, all the things he'd suddenly decided he'd been missing out on. The comments were full of heart emojis and people saying they'd always suspected something. I didn't comment, didn't react, didn't engage. Then Lena posted that story. A photo of them in a park, golden hour lighting, arm around his shoulders. The caption read, "Sometimes the best things in life are worth waiting for. Patience pays off." Patience. As if she hadn't spent months dismantling my relationship piece by piece. Dave called me after seeing it, told me he'd run into Lena at a gas station and she'd been bragging, openly, about how she'd won. How she'd played the long game, how I was too boring anyway. I laughed when he told me. Not because it was funny, but because it didn't hurt the way she probably hoped it would. What I didn't know yet was that patience wasn't about to pay off for her the way she thought. Because exactly 3 weeks after Ethan walked out of my life, my phone lit up with his name. It was a Tuesday night when Ethan's name appeared on my phone, 11:07 p.m. I stared at the screen longer than I'd like to admit. I hadn't blocked his number, not because I was holding on to hope, but because blocking him felt like giving him more emotional weight than he deserved. The text was short. "Hey, can we talk?" I didn't respond. I set my phone face down on the nightstand and went to sleep. By morning, there were 4 more messages. The tone shifted with each one, hesitant, apologetic, unraveling. "I think I made a mistake. I've been doing a lot of thinking. She's not who I thought she was. I miss you. I miss us." I read them over coffee, calm in a way that surprised me. According to Ethan, the relationship with Lena imploded almost immediately after it became official. The exciting, carefree version of her disappeared within days. She was jealous, controlling, constantly checking his phone, questioning who he talked to, getting angry if he didn't respond fast enough. The spontaneous adventures, mostly credit card funded. The impressive career stories, exaggerated at best. The luxury lifestyle, leased, borrowed, and buried in debt. He admitted the BMW was leased, that she was drowning financially, that the trips and concerts were charged to cards she couldn't pay off, that she criticized his friends, his clothes, even his ambitions, things she claimed she loved when she was trying to pull him away from me. "She said she freed me from a boring life," one message read, "but it turns out she just wanted control." I didn't reply. I went to work, sat through meetings, grabbed lunch with Dave, hit the gym, lived my life. That evening, Ethan called. I let it go to voicemail. He left a 5-minute message, crying, apologizing, saying he'd been manipulated, saying he saw everything clearly now, saying he'd broken things off with Lena 2 days earlier and she'd lost it. She said no one else would put up with me, he said through tears, that I'd regret choosing you over her. Choosing me. Like I was an option on a menu. The next morning, more texts. He wanted to meet in person. Said he owed me a real apology. Said texting wasn't enough. I finally responded, I appreciate you reaching out, but I've moved on. I hope you figure out what you're looking for. Take care. That should have been the end. It wasn't. Friday evening, I heard a knock at my door. I knew it was him before I opened it. Ethan stood there looking smaller somehow. Tired, unshaven, eyes red. He was wearing sweatpants and one of my old hoodies I hadn't even realized he still had. We need to talk, he said. I don't think we do. Please, just 5 minutes. I didn't invite him in. I stayed in the doorway. You have 5. He talked fast, like he was afraid I'd shut the door if he slowed down. Told me how confused he'd been, how turning 29 made him panic, how Lena got in his head and reframed everything good in his life as settling, how he realized within days that leaving me was the biggest mistake he'd ever made. I never stopped loving you, he said. Every moment with her, I compared her to you. She lost every time. I let him finish. Then I said calmly, you didn't just make a mistake. His face fell. You made a choice. You listened to someone who spent months tearing down our relationship and decided her version of life was better. You didn't hesitate. I was wrong, he whispered. Let me finish, I said. You didn't just break up with me. You broke up with me for her. And now that it didn't work out, now that the grass turned out to be mud, you want to come back. That's not fair. What's not fair, I replied, is expecting me to be your backup plan. He started crying harder. You wanted to explore. You wanted to see what else was out there. You did that. How did it work out? He didn't answer. I'm not interested in being someone's second choice, I continued. That lesson only gets taught once. He stood there for a moment like he was waiting for me to change my mind. I didn't. Eventually, he turned around and walked away. I closed the door, and for the first time in weeks, I felt completely at peace. The fallout didn't end when Ethan walked away from my door. It rarely does. By the next morning, the story had already started circulating. Mutual friends reached out, some cautiously, some boldly. Apparently, Ethan had been telling people he'd made a huge mistake and was trying to fix things. Lena, meanwhile, had gone quiet online for exactly 48 hours before resurfacing with vague posts about betrayal, loyalty, and how some people don't appreciate what they fight for. I blocked both of them everywhere. I wasn't interested in being a character in someone else's redemption arc. People took sides, of course, they always do. A few said everyone deserves a second chance, that relationships are complicated, that fear makes people do stupid things. Others were firmly on my side. They said I handled it with grace, that Ethan showed me exactly who he was when someone else dangled something shiny in front of him, that if it had happened now, it would have happened later, after a lease, after an engagement, after kids. I listened politely and said the same thing every time. I'm okay. And for once, it wasn't a lie. That weekend, Dave dragged me out to dinner. A steakhouse downtown I'd always said was too expensive for a random Saturday, which he promptly ignored. We talked about everything except Ethan. Work, travel, his marriage issues, summer plans, real conversations, the kind that remind you the world is bigger than one relationship that didn't work out. Near the end of the night, he finally asked, You regret not taking him back? I didn't even have to think. No. Not because I didn't care, but because I cared enough about myself not to go backward. He showed me who he was when things got uncomfortable, I said. When someone else offered him an easier story to believe. I don't want to build a life with someone who needs to lose me to realize my value. Dave nodded. Fair. He paused, then added, For what it's worth, Lena's been telling people you stole him emotionally, which is delusional. I laughed. Let her. Reality doesn't need defending. Over the next few weeks, I heard through the grapevine that neither of them was handling things well. Ethan had expected forgiveness. Lena had expected victory. Neither got what they wanted. I renewed my routines, took that solo camping trip, sat by a fire with no one else's expectations humming in the background. I slept better, thought clearer, laughed easier. And one night, sitting alone on my couch, the same couch where Ethan once told me he didn't know what he wanted, I realized something. I didn't lose anything. I lost someone who couldn't see my worth until someone else showed him what losing me felt like. And that's not a loss. That's a filter. I'm Jackie Ross. I build stable things, careers, homes, boundaries. And I am no one's backup plan.